Hi everybody, welcome to Helicon. Welcome to the Logan Library. My name is Joseph, I'm a librarian here. It's our pleasure to host Helicon. Thank you for coming tonight. I was kind of worried no one was going to show. And then all of a sudden, you're all here, which is great. And we have a long lineup for reading tonight, which is also great. We've got a really good summer, high numbers and good readings. So Star isn't here to thank, but of course we're always thankful to Star for keeping Helicon alive. And does anyone else have any announcements that need to come out? Okay, we'll dive right in then. Oh, did you have one?
Oh no, I was just thinking that school's about to start.
When is that, Monday?
Yeah.
USU starts? Good luck to everyone who's has a new semester. Okay, we'll take these in little chunks.
Star is here.
Hooray.
Yay!
There she is. Thank you, Star. We were just about to start. Thank you for keeping Helicon going. We'll start with Emmaleigh, Tony, and Nathan.
Hidden secrets. For every rose, petals silky with a gleam like the moon, shining across the water on a clear starry night, soft red velvet covered in thorns, like a star, bright color lighting up your night. Holding inside a malevolent secret, inside that bright star is gas and flames. Everyone, no matter how nice, gentle, or generous they seem on the outside, holds anger inside. Woo!
Thanks, Emily. Tony, and then Nick.
So I just published a little book of essays, which I call "They Were Not Amused." And, what they are is I started writing about 25 years ago, and they are little vignettes of things that I've done in my life that dumbfounded people who were around me. And this one is the first one, and I've whittled it down so it's only going to take about 7 minutes, which is the limit. And this does not count part of the 7 minutes. But if you want to, you can always buy the book. It's on Amazon. That's why I'm here, to try, because when you publish your own book, they tell you got to get out and try to sell the thing. So, this is called Bombed. Oh, and a little caveat. If you're likely to be offended by irreverence, you can be consoled that I will eventually pay the price. All right. My life began in London in 1944 with a German bomb that, according to my mother, pulverized the corner pub, thereby inducing me to pop out. She later claimed that I was such a little Nazi that I must have been carried over from Germany by that bomb, rather than the more common domestic stork. This moment is not the earliest in my memory. That's preserved for a backyard filled with microscopic bits of metal and mellifluous smell of melted lead. I think I must have been about 3 when a shed behind our domicile in Brussels at the time was occupied by a print shop. The smells of molten lead, burning coal, and the smoldering peat appeal to me yet, if only in wisps of mnemonic fog. Coal and peat were still used to heat our homes after the war. These were largely responsible for the ubiquitous and poetic London fog, which, although conducive to memories, were bad for visibility, and the lungs, and were, along with LSD, peace, and other luxuries in America banned in London during the 60s. I have a particular memory of creeping the few blocks from the local pub to my grandmother's house in Barnes on a visit back to Blighty in 1965 in black fog so impenetrable that I couldn't see my proverbial hand, having to grope my way from house to house while hoping to avoid falling into a brick stairwell. My difficulty was only partly attributable to the imbibing of several pints of potent British bitter. Alcohol in one form or another has played a significant peripheral role in my life, starting with my mother's use of Hagen to shut me up when I was teething. Surprisingly, unlike milk and tomatoes, Scotch whiskey seems to have been available in London during the war, a glut unfortunately not particularly conducive to strengthening teeth and other bones. 20 or so years later, a Boeing 707 was airborne over the Pacific, and I reached into my travel bag and pulled out plastic cups, warm Kahlua, and even warmer vodka. Like a child at Christmas in Wales, in went my hand into that wool white, and out came my newly acquired friend Dave and the Black Russians we shared on our way to Vietnam. This plane did not come equipped with stewardesses, so we could not ask for ice. The booze was a parting present from my mother, who believed that alcohol was a panacea for all life's vicissitudes, not just the noise engendered by emerging teeth. Nevertheless, it went down well, if a bit stickily due to the lack of any method of refrigeration. Dave appreciated it at any rate. The uniforms we wore were, I think, called suntans, a sort of semi-dress, short-sleeved getup upon which was worn one single adornment, a red and yellow bit of cloth called the National Defense Service Ribbon. The hats were oddly named after a bit of female anatomy, the connection with which, try as I might, I could never quite visualize. I had worn a similar hat as a Boy Scout, but had been blissfully unaware of its name. Had I known it, I was sure to have been even more confused than I already was at that age. Dave and I were 23 at the time, old men compared to the rest of the mostly boisterous, enthusiastic denizens of the plain. While they frolicked in their insouciance, we slaked our unease with vodka. While we faced the imminent possibility of death or dismemberment, they headed off to the glorious prospect of a Boy Scout jamboree. No wonder the Army liked 18-year-olds. The Boeing 707 landed in Cameron Bay after 23 hours in the air. I think we may have stopped for gas in Hawaii. We may not have had stewardesses, but we did have air conditioning, and then someone opened the door. A blast of superheated air drove through the cabin, similar to what, as a 7-year-old, I had imagined from the nun's description the fires of hell must have been like. Catholic school was a unique experience. My older sister and I were sent there, apparently at some expense, as I was constantly reminded, because the education in private schools was presumed to have been better than in public institutions. My stepfather had been sent away as a child to a Roman Catholic boarding school run by Jesuit brothers in Sardinia. I suspected that this was where he had learned his child-rearing techniques that today, since they involve various applications of hard hands and leather belts, would have landed him in another type of institution. I think this was my first taste of post-traumatic stress disorder, an ailment Vietnam, try as it might, was unable to improve upon. In addition to being foreign, my peers not knowing or caring that their parents and my parents had fought side by side in the previous war, I had the additional distinction of having been baptized Church of England rather than Rome, a point that the nuns seemed honor-driven to unendingly belabor. They also had an unfortunate predilection to smack non-Catholics on the back of the hand with a 12-inch ruler. You wouldn't think they could get much momentum with only a 12-inch ruler. Yes, they must have been well trained in the nunnery. Perhaps they engaged in self-flagellation, which I suspected would have required a similar dexterity. While there, I nursed a singular dislike for Pope Pius XII, whose cadaverous face was displayed all over the place, along with a brown-bearded profile of a handsome white Jesus with a non-Semitic Northern European nose, alongside equally white Mary holding a flaming sacred heart. I was therefore happy to leave the city for the suburbs at age 10, there being no detectable nuns in the suburbs. This may have been the first time I practiced offering my middle finger to a segment of my past. I know that I made a similar gesture when I left the army. My parents did not entirely give up on religion when we moved to the suburbs, at least for me. While they stayed abed on Sunday mornings, they forced me to become an altar boy in the local Episcopalian church. Perhaps in those years they still held out some hope for the redemption of my soul. We were called acolytes, but I can't say that I was ever an acolyte in the true sense of the word, not believing in any gray-bearded, human-looking God myself. But I did assist with the counting of the congregation on Sundays so that the minister could turn the right amount of wine into blood. In fact, the ushers would count the crowd, and I would pass this datum on to the reverend. I soon discovered that Episcopalians, as opposed to the Catholics, could not keep the consecrated wine from one service to the next, and the residue would have to be consumed by the minister and his acolytes. At 14, I developed quite a taste for sacramental wine, and would, though warned by my conscience not to, inflate the count of the congregation so that they would gain a fair quantity of transubstantiated blood to be polished off by the acolytes. I think the parents wondered why I was so tired after church that I flopped on my bed as soon as I got home. I was, in fact, sleeping off a religious coma induced by overindulgence in the sacrament. Inevitably, my deception was uncovered in all its sacrilegious glory, and I was lectured severely, divested of my white gown, canned as an acolyte, and a member of the church. I was ecstatic, although I would miss the Sunday drinking sprees. Neither the minister nor my parents were amused.
Hi, I'm Nathan. I'm going to read you a couple of my pieces. This first one is called Paperweight. I just sold my car. Wasn't good for much but holding down the driveway. Filled but bald tires notwithstanding, it's a piece of shit. Got me from A to B, assuming C was already within walking distance. A place to store dried puddles of paint and cushions and house rusty bolts that knock like a scared drunk in the middle of the night. It has its charms, a manual. I like the CD that's stuck in the radio. The ring you can hear squeal from the poorly maintained timing belt harmonizes with me if I choose to sing the right notes. It wasn't even worth what I was asking, begging for it. Some last-ditch effort to see it useful to me, or at all. I'm gonna miss my giant paperweight. I loved that heap of rust and peeling paint like I loved the weight that cried to me, desperately honest, from a place of cold rain and men demanding push-ups, who asked me to marry her, buy her a ring, and fly across the country to be with her just to dump me at the altar, wanting to see what she could get now that she realized people thought she was pretty. That is, I loved that piece of shit more than anyone would if they knew how easily it overheats. And if I don't have to sing with it anymore, I don't care if it keeps the ring. This next one is called Portrait Painting. Paint me, she said. So I painted an empty wooden bowl, built with easy and obvious brush strokes. Fuck you, she said with a chuckle. So I painted over the whole thing with nothing on my brush because I realized I had given her too much credit. This last one I'm going to read is called Facebook Memories. Scroll, scroll, politics. Write a comment, almost click send, don't. No energy to argue today. Scroll, scroll, picture of a dog, like. Scroll, meme, lol. Scroll, emo status. Oh man, Jenny really needs to stop dating that asshole. Scroll, meme, share. Scroll, picture of a couple. Fuck them in their happy life. Like, whatever, she's hot. Scroll, social commentary on feminism. Want to like, but not enough to like anything that this person posts. Scroll, sponsored ad for a degree in 3 months. Who the hell would fall for that? Scroll, article about sex robots. Assume I already know the content. Scroll, artsy painting of The Simpsons. Like. Scroll, same sponsored ad for a degree in 3 months. Apparently people like me fall for it. Scroll, set of pictures from a photo shoot. Oh, you're not gonna make it as a model, dear, but I commend your effort. Like. Scroll, Facebook memory of my dead dog. Fuck. Scroll, status asking about opinions about movies. I haven't seen any of them. Scroll up. Facebook memory of my dead dog. Fuck. Scroll. Meme involving Disney characters. Jesus, I miss my dog. Scroll. Comic trying to be inspirational. He was such a good boy. Scroll. Article about the LHC. His bed is still stuffed in my closet. Scroll. George Takei makes a pun. Do I throw it away? That seems vulgar. It was his. It's not like I'm gonna let another dog have it. Scroll. 15 funniest moments from friends. It's obscene to just keep it in my closet next to the boxes of trash I call craft material. Scroll. Status about Lincoln Park. The night before he died, I held him upright all night so that he could get some sleep. He couldn't breathe if he laid down. He wanted to lay down. He was so tired. Scroll. It's Rebecca's birthday. I'd never seen him so confused. How can you possibly communicate to a dog why they're so tired, or why they're having such a hard time breathing, or why you're holding them in such an obviously uncomfortable position? Scroll. 18 pictures of the same baby. The drive the next morning to the vet was a blur. I shouldn't have been driving, but I just couldn't watch him suffer anymore. It was time. Scroll. Article dissecting a political skit from SNL. I held his head in my lap when they gave him the shot. He looked like it was soothing, like whatever they gave him made him hurt less, like he could sleep. Scroll. Article about a basketball game last night. I called my dad on my drive out to the farm to bury him. I dug a big hole. Not big enough. My father dug the rest. He knew I was broken. He's buried dogs before. Scroll. Uberfax post about sharks. I don't believe in an afterlife, but I put his favorite chew toy next to his mouth just in case. Scroll. Funny comic about raccoons. God, he was just the best damn dog. Scroll. Pictures of my ex smiling with her new boyfriend. Fuck Facebook.
For our next reader, Star asked me to announce that there's a new broadside, and you can pick that up. She has them. They're $2. Looks nice.
And Luke is the photographer. He did that great piece. And Nate did you did both of these poems. You did both of those, Untitled and Dandelions, and they're great poems. And it was edited by Tasha Urban, who couldn't come here tonight because she's working a job. And I apologize for being late and for forgetting the broadsides and left them in my car because my phone went black all of a sudden this afternoon, and I really panicked and I didn't realize that I was connected to my phone in such a way. But I was expecting calls and I had to go get a new battery, and Thank goodness it's okay. Buy a broadside. I'll put the phone right here.
Okay, so next up we have Brittney, Brock, and Nate.
Speaking of phones, I'll be reading off of mine. I apologize. Yeah.
May it not go black.
Not right now. Perfect. So this first poem I brought is titled To the Cells. Your father held me. Thin, boyish frame lifted me from the rubber chair, peeled me from the pink stirrups beneath my knees. Your father held and guided my twitching thighs through the eyes of my panties, loose jeans. I gave my body weight to him and flew with a womb gutted by metal teeth. The heavy ache, his bony arms. We loved each other very much. Yay! Poem number 2 is titled 10 Things I Should Have Learned by Now. 1. Ramen always tastes better cooked on the stove. 2. Do your laundry every week or just more often. 3. Don't pick fights with bearded men over 6 feet tall because for some reason they'll take you up and bruise your shins. 4. Sleeping with him doesn't make you feel better. 5. How to drive a stick shift. 6. Don't sneak shots. 7. All those men had feelings too. 8. You are only as broken as you tell yourself you are. 9. Small people will try to cut you, crush your voice until they get you to punch enough walls that you've chipped off your diamond edges and they can smother you in their pocket and you know better than to dull yourself. 10. Make your bed. And my last poem tonight is titled Laundry. I folded my body at the edge of the bed, arms tucked back, lungs pressed, collar cocked. My corners, rounded bone, left open for the hands that hung me, the hook of his mouth, the smile.
I put mine on my iPad because I'm cooler than Brittney. I've been looking, so my project this summer, my writing project, because I've been writing, I swear, is looking at pieces that I took out of the chapbook I wrote for Jennifer Steiner's Flash nonfiction class. And I looked at this one and I really liked it, and then it ended up working with something that just happened recently. So, it's called Water. I saw him again. He ambled toward me with the hint of musk on his breath, American spirits like he used to smoke on quiet nights when we drank too much Malbec and we couldn't get hard. Most times we laughed and fell asleep with our hands on each other. His shirt was clean, crisp white, his skin still pale but tan kissed on his arms and cheeks. He smiled and I sunk in my seat. I took his hand and tried not to trip over trivial words, but the classic pleasantries escaped my lips like air. I inhaled the influx of oxygen and stared at his dark eyes. You look good, he said. His hand found the crook of my neck before he sat opposite me, our legs further than our lips. I swallowed the saliva puddled behind my teeth. It looked like any two people pretending to put aside a year's worth of worried nights spent without him. I wasn't the person he left in Logan, I knew it, but I twiddled my thumbs, found a hangnail, and hung on every word he said. How long has it been? 14 months I walked the world quiet, only the sounds of Lauren Hill and capable of all the usual exchanges, assuring everyone it was over, I was fine, he's a fucker, I don't miss him, maybe I'll get out there again, but those nights of bated breath and sloppy kisses were wasted on bad bourbon and too much talking. They were mountains, the bodies beneath me. I had to climb higher than I had ever just to breathe again. What's your life been like since I left? I couldn't tell him. The better half of those 14 months was spent bathing my body in anything that wasn't him. I couldn't smell water without wanting to drench my sunspot skin. Everything was never enough for my senses to soak. My pores were open, wide mouths. There was so much more than the saline taste of stranger skin. Alone, I'm at my best, my brightest, but his face found me and I was frail. It's been a good year, I said, my tongue stuck to the dry roof of my mouth. The bitter brace of dark coffee clung to my soft palate. A tannic taste of metal touched the gap beneath my teeth. "How are you?" I asked, my back all too aware of the stiff oak it rested on. "I'm doing really well," he replied. His hand found my knee under the table. "I've missed you." His fingers circled my bare skin, cyclical and starting to burn. I couldn't help but watch his hand feel the familiar. "I've missed you too," I said. I stayed with him in the coffee shop all afternoon, but my heels were already headed up a steep incline. The hill was familiar to fragile bare skin, but the wind nipped at the nape of my neck, bit at broken shoulders. I lost my balance somewhere near the summit. My chest collapsed like a paper bag under pressure, and I fell. Was this what it felt like to feel again? "You couldn't be here sooner," I whispered. The future was a blurred line I couldn't clear. I reached a peak once, and then another, a cotton dry mouth, the only companion as I climbed. Where was the water, the way it used to fill me to the brim and overflow? His words had the same candor and cadence, but the more he spoke, the less I heard. Once I couldn't conduce a feeling other than quiet frenzy, couldn't see the sky without thirsting for rain, but now it was absent of anything, just clear blue empty. Had water ever tasted like anything other than nothing? I thought seeing him would be like breathing in cold air, arrest my lungs, tighten my caved-in chest, but the list of things I thought would happen could reach my ankles, could line the walls around my bed. I had spent so much time with no one on my body but my own skin. I thought I would want him again. I thought my body would yearn to taste the smoke and ash of the bridges we burned. My hands were happy at my sides. My lips needed nothing but the air I inhaled, so I said goodbye, though my head was somewhere higher, a dizzy storm on a purple-gray sky. I said goodbye, and it was the first time I meant it.
So it feels good to be back. I had a really good summer, just kind of been living down in Park City doing nothing. And with everything kind of going on in the media and the incredible ignorance that's been, happening in the East, and even more so that's been happening on social media, I've got a couple poems that are kind of tackle some of my opinions. The first two aren't that, the last one is, so anyway, awkward introduction to that. An apple tree, only half dead, stood bowing off the hillside, holding both its green palms open and its bare arms shattered black against dusk. 1. I sat with you, with me beneath, bullshitting about our newfound lack of bullshit in high. School days being taught nothing but nothing. We converse like junkies, stoned on our own ideas of hollow dollars, hollow aesthetics, hollow identity, hollow sex, hollow time, hollow talk, hollow love, and God save the goddamn world. Amen. 2. There were days where so much I believed, the word would have meant nothing to me had I not heard it humming in my father's palms, and the stones he made walk across water, clear to the other bank of that river where to this day they are still in the mud, caught singing off his fingertips. In the rooms in which we are still laughing, caught like fireflies in empty wine, bottles high on the sweet fumes of wine no longer, in our veins softly thundering over and over our bones like tribal drums of wild, holy ghosts haunted by the sweet urge to raise ourselves from the living in the shadows of one another and our own madness of tomorrow, of privilege, of economic and social status, of mental illness of the heart. On your breath, the nostalgia we felt for a time before our own, locked together in ourselves. You said it when you came. Home. 3. Home is where I heard it last. Home is where I left myself hollow for anything that sounded half as sweet. As home spread thick with emptiness between Portland and Kansas City, I practiced listening too closely for the music of hollow things being struck by God or lightning to hear much of anything. For you stood and took a wild apple from the living, half of the tree, and took a bite from the apple and offered it to me. I heard everything inside of it. I listened to nothing. 5. It was sweet. Second one's called A Portrait of You in 12 Pieces. 1. Every time you hiccup, a baby duck pops into existence. I remember one afternoon last fall when we were driving down Federal Avenue and you were filling up First Dam with ducklings, and this summer we gave the time away feeding pancakes to a bunch of hiccups, and you looked like a song standing still in the wind on the dock, too. The finest soil, sunshine, and summer breath in Georgia couldn't have made more perfect beaches. 3A. In the next billion-something years or so, Andromeda is predicted to crash through the Milky Way and weave a new family of constellations into the night sky. B. Once we kissed like that over a dish of sunny side fried scrambled whatever eggs, to some singer's voice breaking over the words, "This is our home." C. A voice only breaks like that when it carries more honesty than the throat can handle. D. If that sounds cheesy, that's because it is. But so are those eggs, and they were bitchin'. 4. There's angel oak woods in the south, draped in Spanish moss. There's wild cherry blossoming in the north, white like a Sunday morning, and you are always suspended somewhere between their branches, so listen. 5. When Felix Baumgartner stood at the celestial ceiling of the sky, taller than anyone could have imagined, I have to imagine there was something comfortable in that perfectly quiet ocean, about seeing the entire world laid out before him, about being a floating speck inside of a yawning blue god. I have to imagine the difficulty of trading a beating heart during that one tilting footstep for the terror of weightlessness, the ground and all of its lovely shattered people roaring up towards him. The faith he had in gravity is what I have to imagine. Amen looks like 6, a set of leather-bound antique books of poetry written in liquid jade, softly closed. How the hell did they write a lens prescription for that? 7. Any given cat ever. 8. Matadors have stepped through the most sacred places in you, with lances glinting pretty in the light and capes like shadows. A few years back, during the running of the bulls in Pamplona, the final bull refused to run after those fleeting red scarves, to play death on the cobblestones. Instead, he trotted circles around the corral, insisting that the matadors come to him. In that moment, they are still coming, and he is still ready to fight. 9. I have watched you speak so quickly, trying to apologize yourself into worthiness that your lips chapped, but through the cracks shown nothing in need of forgiveness. So, 10. You are falling just as fast as the light will let you without letting go. Your heart is a holy parachute, doomed to die trying to catch up to you. 11. Has been a beautiful dance that I'm still learning, but I've got 2 left feet and a lot of problems. Thanks for showing me how. 12. The barefoot music of wind chimes spilling over backyard fences and into the quiet streets at midnight before a soft rain. And this last one is, I really like this poem a lot. I've spent a lot of time with it, and it just, sometimes I read it and I just giggle. So it's called Love People. This is an answer to everything that's going on. I want to love people. And when I say I want to love people, I mean, I want to love them like replacing every street lamp with a stained glass bulb, just for the hell of it. Because it's beautiful, like you and like me. I mean, I want to love people like making the prettiest girl in the room laugh, like the voice my grandfather uses to read the gospel, like a mirror with an off switch. I want to love people like the person I am just forgot about the person I want to be, and the person I just wanted to be dissolved into the person I am. Believe me, I want to love people like that. I want to love people like folding the blue sky into a bouquet of 7 billion origami roses and giving them to everybody with notes that read, "Look, there's only 7 billion of us here, and you get to be one. Like today, our mouths are for kissing and nothing else." I want to love people like John Lennon's imagination, like Gandhi's conviction, like a Christian that actually listens. When I say I want to love people, I mean I want to love them like the congregations of every church, mosque, synagogue, and temple in the world doing a Chinese fire drill with one another all at once. I mean, I want to love people like making all the bullets currency so no one would waste them killing anybody anymore, making all the currency go fuck yourself tickets so we could all tell the banks exactly what's on everyone's mind. I want to love people like the way a child's eyes touch what's in front of them. Like we all forgot where to look and remembered how to see. Like we all forgot how to speak and remembered what to say. I want to love people like, instead of handing children merely a word and a definition to use when teaching them of forgiveness, how to forgive, we would show their gentle eyes simply to point upwards at the moon and stars and keep their mouths shut. I want to love people like my mother believes in them, like I so badly wish that I could. I want to love people like my cousin loved heroin. Like the day he woke up alone with no more fuck yourself tickets to spend and a hand loaded with currency that all went to his head in a flash, that power, like he's richer than any of us ever have been. Now believe me, I want to love people like I want him back. So when I say I want to love people, I mean I want to love people, like 7 billion people, pointing up at the moon and stars with their mouths shut, clutching blue roses against their hearts, so that when the day gives each of us its light, we can celebrate by letting go our unfolding arms into the sky as we watch it erupt into the color of a baptism.
Next, we have Isaac, Sarah, and Luke.
Yeah, I've got 2 poems. Sorry. Damn, I'm ready. Sorry, guys. All right. Caliban's lover. Miranda's breath, warm air from the black stones. Her hip, a curved palm frond, bending under rain. Her eyes, the blue of the Caribbean, down to lost ships. A thigh, the curve of a keel. Her breast, the bellow of a sail, leaving, until only the pirate cackle of the frigate bird remains. And the second one is Caribbean, Western Desert. Rap, tap, Caribbean, marimba, rain on oil drums, southwestern downpour like fingers, no Christmas lights or palm trees swinging, just dust weeping on a dead sea. Thank you.
Hello. Thanks, Doc.
Hi.
My name is Sarah, like she said. I am a sophomore at Logan High, for those of you guys who don't know me, and got a couple poems to read today because I haven't read for a long time. So the first one is called Useless Prayer. She prayed to distance in hopes she'd be blessed with a heart grown fonder, though she was aware that new eyes wouldn't change the way her blue eyes saw him. That's the first one. And the second one is called Funeral Saturday. The music wasn't all that good, but I didn't notice it that much because I was lost in the metaphorical resonances of listening to a dead man's favorite music. It felt wrong holding a book while most others held only tears and a bag of chips. I wasn't a friend of his, and no, we weren't related. I'd never met him in my life, and yet there I stood mourning the loss of a man with apparent terrible music taste. Moral of the story, don't take the poet to a funeral of a man they've never met if you want the man mourned more than their music taste. This one's called Sincerely the Environmentalists. Dear people who think global warming is not a thing. You have eyes, right? You're just not using them because I can open your eyes, but I can't give you new ones. Either way, you have ears, so listen up because I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. For one, this is a scientific issue, not a political one. It's not something that can be debated. It's fact, not fiction. Now that's out of the way, here are the numbers. Throughout our entire human history, carbon dioxide levels have never been above 300 parts per million. Want to know where it's at now? 400 parts per million. On the scale of things, let's just say we're screwed. That's not enough for you, I'm just getting started. Sea levels around our lovely planet have risen 8 inches in the last 100 years. You know what else? NASA says that the rate of the last 2 decades, however, is nearly double that of the last century. Also, you know Stephen Hawking, the really smart guy? Yeah, he says you're wrong, So this is me begging you to open your beautiful eyes, I thought maybe flattery would help, to this disastrous situation. It's not my imagination, it's the end of our civilization. Sincerely, the environmentalists. And this is the last one. It's really weird, so I wasn't sure if I was going to read it. I just finished it tonight, but I will read it anyway. It's called Reasons to be Alive, Octopus Eyes. I couldn't care less about inspirational quotes.
I don't need to be told that the present is a gift, or what the best thing about rock bottom is, or that only I can stop forest fires. If I was to write one myself, it would have less to do with landing in the stars, and more to do with how much better you could see them if you had the eyes of an octopus. See, octopi have such phenomenal eyes, the spectrum of color they see makes our own look like the crummy box of crayons you get at a kid's restaurant, whereas an octopus's would be the beautiful 64 Crayola pack I always wanted as a kid. If I ever went blind, I think I'd get octopus eye replacements. And yeah, I'd look weird because they'd be too big for my head, but can you imagine how strange and incredible it would be? And it wouldn't matter how I look because how I see things is more important than how I'm seen. If there was even the slightest chance of seeing through the eyes of an octopus, that's reason enough to be alive. And if I could take your life or your perspective and change it even a little bit, that's reason enough. So look through the eyes of an octopus. Can you imagine the stars?
Oh, yeah.
So I have a spoken word poem that I've been trying to write for like a year now. And I just finished it, but I didn't realize it was a spoken word poem until last night as I was doing a little bit of editing, and I realized that it was meant to be performed. And I'm a little nervous because this is my first spoken word poem, but I need an audience to test it out in front of. So this is People Take Life Too Seriously. Human beings are really cute in the way they try to handle things. Sometimes they're not in a really terrifying and horrific way, but usually they're pretty cute. Like how in order to really understand things like the natural laws of the world or the nature of cells, we try to make them more human. We say things like, and then the cells decide to divide as if they ever had a choice at all. It's just chemicals, the concentrations of certain ones cause a reaction, or parts of the cell do different things, not because they have conscious thought, but because of chemicals. Still, we humanize everything from the pieces of furniture in an office to the stars in the sky. We want so badly to connect that we make things human. In fact, humans are desperate to make connections. We're all just little brain stems wandering around in these soft, fragile, flabby meat shields, scared, lonely. We want to connect to each other, and it's a marvelous thing when we finally do. But sometimes these scared little brains lose themselves in the search. They find little cliques and ostracize others because they have a different ideology or shade of skin. We can't seem to connect and get caught up in trivial things, like how some people get so focused on collecting little scraps of cloth that have an arbitrarily assigned value that only have value because we think it has value, and that value only exists because millennia ago, someone thought that shiny rocks were pretty cool. Or, even worse, collecting numbers that represent the little scraps of cloth so they don't get to hold the pieces of fabric, just numbers on a screen. People get caught up so easily in inconsequential trivialities that they forget how ridiculous everything is. Like how the series of sounds I'm making through a complex mixture of moving my tongue around and hitting it against different things in my mouth and opening my jaw in different ways and doing things with my lips can transfer meaning and ideas from one little brainstem to another to create contemplation and laughter and tears. But this particular set of sounds is complete nonsense to others who learn a different set of sounds that hold a unique meaning to those people, and how speech itself is really just vibration. How speech itself is really just based on air buzzing little membranes in our throats, and how sound is really just vibrations carried through matter to our ear, and when the little hairs move a certain way inside the water in our ears, our brain comprehend that as distinct sounds from a person yelling in a room of people to beautiful music. And how our lives are built upon what we remember, but memory is just a pattern of electrical signals that only hold meaning inside our brain, but somehow that little pattern is storage for everything we've ever experienced, and how scientists are baffled at how humans evolved so quickly and speculate that there was an evolutionary arms race against ourselves to see who could develop the fastest to attract the most mates to propagate our species, and somehow that led to us being able to form and hold complex thoughts and world-changing ideas. We went from wanting to get as much sex as possible to, well, still wanting to get as much sex as possible. But being able to wonder why, and to move beyond just our instincts to create morality and ethics and entire philosophies about what's right and what's wrong, and whether everyone really thinks about sex as much as Freud did. Everything around us is so fascinating, from the way that a distinct human is made from small genetic components of two other humans to light, traveling unfathomable distances to say, hey, I exist, notice me. Humans get caught up in so many things that we sometimes forget to pause, look around, and say, isn't everything amazing?
Oh, yeah.
Do any of our friends that came in later want to sign up? Okay. Our last four then will be Amy, Timothy, Amias, and Ronald.
4 poems because I haven't read at Helicon all summer. So,
We've missed you.
this first one is my attempt at a slam poem inspired by Nate Hardy's Pandora Didn't Open a Box, She Opened Her Mouth poem. And for some reason it made me think of the story of Lot's wife in the Bible. So it's called Of Sodom and Gomorrah. It must have been incredibly difficult fleeing the only home she'd have ever known, leaving all the comforts bred in familiarity, her disobedience so profound as to warrant stripping her name from her story, lest some unsuspecting mother name another daughter who might carry similar seeds of rebellion, strength of will, might have looked to her as an example, not a warning. They say she looked back, so the Lord smote her to a pillar of salt where she stood as promised. Natural consequences and all of that. But the scriptures were written by men in a time when women existed as little more than property, no more intelligent than a dog, yet not nearly so obedient. Who's to say if she was mourning the pretty jewels she couldn't carry, the fine linens too delicate for travel, or the larder stocked full but left to spoil? Who's to say she wasn't breathing in the city, committing to memory this last vision of the place she'd married, raised her babies, worked the thankless jobs of a wife and a mother whose sacrifices are deemed less since she stayed in her own home, not outside it? Perhaps she was painting inside her heart the majesty of God illuminated in little things, heat shimmering over the desert, the play of light and shadow in the city from a distance, the stillness of the spot where she planted her feet, never again to move them. Did she see the first kiss of death, destruction so vast as to swallow an entire way of life, such complete laying to waste its echo still rings in our ears? Did she mourn that massive loss, lives so twisted in themselves and sin they couldn't hear the warnings, didn't believe them if they did? But she, who'd learned God so deep she followed even when it hurt, turned her eyes back with the weakness of a woman shedding tears for all she knew, became frozen in the scenery by someone else's hand, her life made petty as they twisted her into an ugly thing they could control. Perhaps they were jealous of her strength, of her faith to accept a God who values obedience more when it is the sacrifice of a mind who searches him out in all things rather than a byproduct entered into without thought. This next one is called Siren Song. It's the metallic tang of fresh cut flesh pressed against your lips, a secret kiss. Its bruises blooming yellow-green to dusk purple like mums. It's the skin you've burned silver white and smooth as a worry stone left behind after the blister peels away. It's the knife you ignore screaming your name from the kitchen drawer. It's the bottle of sleeping pills you tremble open each night before taking just one. It's the anthem of lies you can only recognize as the absence of pain between cycles. This one doesn't have a title, but I liked it, so I'm gonna read it. Some days, rarely, she is confident in her skins, dresses to show how very feminine she is, paints her face like she knows what she's doing, wishes she'd learned to walk in heels so everyone could see how sexy she feels. She isn't really this person. Most days she's ambivalent. The shell she lives in nothing but a vehicle for her mind to connect to other words, ideas, human beings. How she presents her body not nearly as important as the truths about herself she dissects with ink and paper. Occasionally, her skin is an enemy attempting to strangle the touchstones grounding her to a reality she can share with others. Those days, she wishes the world were as simple as Ramna. Douse in water to force your skin to match the color of your soul that day. Wishes she had the skills to rearrange the pieces until they fit with nothing inconveniently absent or extra. Wishes she knew how to be the boy shuffled between the pages. And this last one is called Photograph High School Graduation. We smile, smashed together, eyes shaded under scarlet mortarboard, blurred bodies, crimson cloaked, the distinction separating us nearly non-existent. I stand between you, forever between you, a secret we never pulled into words, broken before we understood how it all clicked together. Our act rehearsed across hallways for months, flawless before the camera. A story about best friends forever, young lovers, high school sweethearts, happily ever after the end. A still life, brilliance on the cusp of becoming, captured out of sequence, failing to tell why our ever-fragile triad crumbled, never hints of the shrouded truths we told after, scarred trenches cut so wide there aren't pretty words enough to bridge us back together.
So I have a few haikus and a poem inspired by seeing total eclipse in Idaho this previous Monday. And if any of it sounds like it needs work, because it's kind of hard to do poetry without a class giving you feedback. So the haikus are what I call summer haikus part 2, because I have a part 1 with 4 of them, but I only have 2 this time. Hobo spiders search in the shower for water before shoes smush them. If humans could, we'd sue summer for tender burns and pool party fails. Now the other poem, 2 minutes of fantasy made real, or 2 minutes of reality. I watched The Martian to skip the hours till total eclipse, 1 hour remaining. I unpack my Nintendo Switch to travel digital landscapes as Link. They look a little like the hills overlooking Idaho Falls, but without mini-bosses. I switch to Mario Kart after I die 4 times in a row. Single player, Donkey Kong, Classic Kart, Rainbow Road. I finally drive that map without complaints. The van's shade helps me see the screen, but the sun dims slowly, and I gaze up with eclipse glasses to see a crescent sun. Since it's not a common occurrence, I hit pause. I stand with my group of friends. Some try to snap photos with iPhone cameras looking through the glasses. It didn't work. Very quickly, the cold increased, the crickets began chirping, while some shoved themselves into hoodies. I didn't bring one. This is an experience for the senses. Soon, a sliver of sun remains. A wall of darkness approaches from the horizon, like Sauron's dark cloud of evil approaching Minas Tirith. Our shadows begin to blend with the rising darkness before mixing with the arrival of black sun. The sun's aura burns brightly like white flames, a giant celestial sunflower in the sky. Venus winked at us through the dark portal of nature. Down in Idaho Falls, the crossword puzzle of street lamps turned on, with cameras flashing like a party of fireflies. 2 minutes disappear. I remembered I hadn't blinked. I pondered how, for 2 minutes, America forgot its troubles and tribulations. So cool, I thought to myself. Resume game.
All just pulling it up on our phones. So this is a poem I wrote about my boyfriend called Same Comfort. When we first met, you were a name on a screen, attached to art and witty one-liners, and the potential to be cool. I expected you to be different in private, but what I got was more of the same, and then some. Like signing up for Hulu Plus, everything you get for free, and more. I thought hearing each other's voices would change things, but our vocal conversations were simply more of the same, and then some. Same topics, same interests, same patterns, same comfort. I am so much more comfortable than I thought I could be. Surely my feelings would change things. Surely our relationship would devolve. We would no longer talk about our shared interests. We would only talk about our feelings. We would lose interesting conversation, and I would lose interest. But I told you how I felt, and you told me how you felt, and it was more of the same, and then some. Same topics, same interests, same patterns, same comfort. I thought meeting you would ruin it. I've always ruined things like this before. I didn't want to ruin us. But your face is the same face as the one on the screen, only manifested in an extra dimension, more of the same, and then some. Kissing you is not like fire or lightning or a flood, not shocking, not burning, not sudden, not too much. It is simply more of the same, and then some, a new way to touch you. Spending all day in bed with you did not make conversation difficult. I find it so easy to talk to you. I still feel free to joke terribly. Paul Bunyan's cock shanty. You bring out the best and worst in me. Touching you was different, not shocking, not burning, not sudden, not too much. It was like touching myself, but it was you. I saw your face, and I trusted you, and I wanted so much for you to trust me. Your testosterone levels don't scare me. As your voice deepens and your jaw squares, I know you will become more of you, still the man I love, and more so. What's next doesn't scare me anymore. It can only be more of the same, and then some. Same trust, same patterns, same comfort, same love.
Spoke up, mighty Lemmon. Top 10, hard face, underdog. That's how it feels. You turn a tongue. People say like, you over you and say yeah and nay. And then when I try, they're like, what do you say? So why does it have to be this way? There's so many things they try to say. Spoke up, nice dad man. Statement, gains of pause, and that things come in thieves. Let's try without how else artist, tap in with me. First I heard of the mother, as a kiss they know, die in an accident, after 10 hours and go. And another child I knew, died at age 8, coming from a 2, but they didn't carry. We talk about it a lot. I was by far, proceeding on the dead, my brother-in-law. So that's how it was, so I guess, just repeat. Good afternoon, everybody. Appreciate the sweet.
That's it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph.